Personally, I think everyone carries one or two things they rarely share with other people, places inside themselves that feel so vulnerable that they become almost unspeakable. For many people, those places revolve around existential questions such as, am I enough? Am I loved? Do I belong? Am I seen? Is there something fundamentally wrong with me? I know for myself that I've run any variation of those stories on any given day with different degrees of intensity. Sometimes those questions arrived as sharp spikes of turbulence, like flying a plane through a thunderstorm. Other times they hum quietly in the background, barely noticeable, but still present. And there are days where there wasn't much there at all. One of the most difficult seasons of my life came when my mother was nearing the end of her life. She'd been sick for some time and had been diagnosed with heart failure. After several hospitalizations, she eventually came to live with me for what turned out to be the final 6 to 8 months of her life. Our family relationships were very complicated, and the stress at that time revealed fractures between siblings that were pretty difficult to manage. I can say honestly that there were ways I showed up during that time that I wish I had handled differently. I think other family members felt that way as well. Grief had a way of stirring everything. The day after my mother died, I went to the cemetery and crematorium to make arrangements for a simple cremation. I remember sitting there with the funeral director who'd been assigned to me at some point in our conversation, and still to this day, I don't know exactly why. I asked her if they ever needed help. Now, at that time, I was already working more than a full-time job running a live-in resource for street-involved youth who were pregnant or parenting. I didn't need another job. And as it turned out, they did need someone. So not long after that conversation, I began working weekends at the crematorium. The role was technically reception, but in reality it involved a lot of different responsibilities. I answered phone calls for families who had just lost someone. I helped receive the bodies that were brought into the facility. I assisted the cremationist when needed. Sometimes I attended services. I helped families receive the cremated remains of the people that they loved. And I also worked on trying to find families to connect with the remains that had been left behind, seeing if a name could be matched to an urn that had sat on a shelf for decades, sometimes quite a bit longer. I also began watching a television series on Netflix called 6 Feet Under. The show follows a family who runs a funeral home. It was a mixture of humor, humanity, grief, and the everyday realities of relationships and death. So there I was, working weekends at a crematorium, coming home in the evenings, making myself dinner, and binge watching 6 Feet Under. At that time, I was metabolizing. I was metabolizing experience, as we humans do. What I want to say is that all of that's fine. Whatever you do, whatever you're feeling, thinking, anger, sadness, heartbreak, loneliness, aloneness, climbing right up into the underbelly of the beast, so to speak. For many of us, it's a navigation of these really big, audacious thoughts and feelings that's really troublesome, hard to deal with. And here's something else we don't always see or can realize in those moments. All the things we metabolize in our experience are actually happening inside something larger. They're happening inside a field of awareness. People often imagine their thoughts, their emotions, whatever they're doing to cope, that those things are the engine that's pulling the train. When we drop into conscious awareness, remembering that awareness is not something we have to earn or necessarily learn. something else becomes possible where awareness actually becomes the thing that holds the engine that moves through the difficult terrain. Not by eliminating grief or trauma, but by holding it. Context, not content. The thoughts and feelings cannot be the engine alone. It doesn't stop there. All of these things, the coping, the thinking, the grieving, are all happening inside something larger. They're happening inside a field of awareness that's capable of holding all of it in a way that is much different than what we're used to. When life moves through difficult terrain, it's so easy to let the emotions and thoughts become the single engine that's pulling the train. But grief and fear and loss, all the strategies we use to cope, were never meant to be the only engine. What actually can carry us through these landscapes is the already existing capacity that's native to awareness itself. It's really that fundamental. And just because we can't always see it or feel it or access it easily has absolutely nothing to do with its existence. The remarkable thing is that this capacity is not something we have to manufacture. It's something we can return to. It's something we can drop into. You don't have to earn conscious awareness. You don't have to earn your capacity to hold heartbreaking and difficult things. And you don't have to earn your ability to find choice points and take actions in your life that give it meaning and purpose. All of that already exists. And it unfolds in that order. First, conscious awareness. Then, capacity reveals itself. And from there, we begin to see choice points, places where our actions start to shape the life we're living. And if we get lost in any of this, as human beings inevitably do, we return, being entirely compassionate and gentle with ourselves. Step 1. Thank you for listening today. I'll talk to you soon.